Hello everyone, this is Shel C from PaperOcotilloStudio, and this is part 2 of the torn paper painting blue agave 6x6 canvas that I made. This is the video where the actual torn paper painting happens. If you want to see the preparation up to this point, the drawing, the underpainting, all that stuff, it is in part 1, and I will put that in the iCard right now, and then also it will be everywhere else, in the end thing, in the below the video, all that, so that you can make sure to watch both videos in order. So if you're here to watch the paper painting, that's what you're here for. I've got all my gel printed deli papers here, and I'm just kind of spreading them out around the canvas and then using the underpainting as a guide to attach the papers in little torn pieces until I'm satisfied. I'm using Liquitex matte gel medium and a 1-inch flat brush, and sometimes my finger. The deli paper, because I did use the recycled paper off of my, the ones that I put under my projects, and then I keep them in a stack and I use them later. I don't like to waste anything. I like to keep everything, so I don't waste paint, I don't waste paper. I just use it in different applications. And this particular paper sometimes gets a little bit wrinkled. Maybe it has some matte medium dried onto it because of exactly what I'm doing right now. I get some of the matte medium on the paper sometimes, and so I sometimes get a little bit of the gel medium on my finger, and then I press it down and rub over my glued paper, and that kind of helps it get really flat and adhered. Of course, the texture of this painting will always be a little bit bumpy because it's got glued pieces of paper on it. I mean, what do you expect? Unless I was to pour resin over it, and then I can make a very clear, shiny, hard coat. And I do that sometimes, not very often. Resin is fussy, and I live in a dry, dusty climate, and so I have to be worried that there's going to get dust in the resin before it's dry, or that I didn't mix it properly, or I'm going to get bubbles. I spent all this time making this piece, and then the resin process itself might actually ruin it. So I don't get into that very often, but somebody was asking me how I do seal these. Usually I take these outside and I spray them with a clear matte acrylic spray. That's a stinky product. I'm very sensitive to smells, and I don't like to spray anything that smells anywhere inside my studio or inside my house. So I take these outside, I lay them all out on paper, and then I spray them with this clear acrylic, and I let it dry, spray another coat, sometimes 3 coats, just to make sure that everything has a protective coat. That spray also has UV protection so that the colors don't fade over time. Hopefully it's protected. I mean, I don't have any of these that are 50 years old that I can compare, but I do think that, I do my best to try to make it last, so that if you have one of these pieces, you can have it for a long time. So I'm continuing to place paper, and I made a lot of different papers, and I will have a whole bunch left over because I want to be able to pick and choose little sections of the paper. I want this little dotty section that has some of the unbleached titanium and some of the red oxide, fussy about which pieces I pick, and I'm placing the darker ones inside in between the plant and underneath the leaves to try to give a shadow, and then placing the lighter ones, and then using kind of what I consider mixer pieces or medium pieces to fade from one color to another. That's the reason that I make so many little you know simple gel prints of paper, because I want to be able to pick and choose. So I just might take this little piece, and even like my roll off paper, that when I'm gel printing and I roll my brayer off, I also, of course, use those pieces too. These green pieces have the round stamp, and the one on the right hand side is actually my roll off paper, where I was cleaning off some of the unbleached titanium, and then I stamped some of that paint off of the stamp onto that paper. And some people would just think that's trash. It's not. It's actually something that I will use, and I ended up using it as blender paper quite a bit. That one little weird extra piece of roll-off paper. You might have seen me just now bring in my sprayer. Some of this paper is deli paper, but a few pieces of it are actually printer paper, like copy paper. I don't like to use any heavyweight papers if I can avoid it on my collage. Sometimes I do, but then you've got to be real concerned about the thickness of the paper and also what kind of glue you use to get it to stick down really well, because when it's thicker, it's harder to stick it. So anyway, about the back to the water sprayer. When I use this printer paper, I mist it a little bit on the back so that it's slightly damp, and that helps me to get it to lay down smooth and to adhere really well, better than if it's dry. And I think that's because it loosens up the fibers in the paper and just makes it more pliable, basically. So more workable, more easier to manipulate. And you'll see me doing that occasionally. I do that when the paper is giving me a problem. If it's behaving itself and it's not talking back to me and it's laying down like I want it to, I don't have to do it. But if it starts to be kind of a jerk to me, then I just go ahead and I spritz it with water and I say, hey, I am the boss of you and you need to lay down and be quiet. That's what I tell it. And yes, I do talk to my artwork. You don't know it because I don't keep the recording of what's going on in the studio. I always voice over. So the first thing I do when I'm editing is I just take away any sounds that might have been there during the process and then edit and then voice over. So you never know what I might be saying or what I might be singing or what the music is in the background because I always take that stuff out every time. But I make the type of videos that I would want to watch. I like sped up videos because I don't want to go through the whole long process, and I can see what's going on even though it's faster than it would actually be. And I like the talking over the top. So for those of you who appreciate this type of video, it's because you're like me and this is what you wanted to see. Not everybody enjoys this. There is a huge surgence of live videos, things that are going on in real time. And of course, over on Art Joy of Sharing live stream, Peg and I do a live stream every Thursday morning at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Central Time. So you can always come and watch live over there and ask questions in live time, and we do our best to answer everyone. It's tricky to watch the chat and do the art and talk all at the same time, and we do our best. So now I'm moving on to the actual plant itself, and I've got the different papers I might use in this application. I've got my background to my satisfaction at this point. So I'm thinking about it. How do I make the texture? The thing that attracted me to this plant when I took the picture of it on my morning walk was the texture of it. Looked, it has kind of two textures. The leaf comes out and it looks like it has these like little torn paper striations through it, all the way up, going lighter, darker, for whatever reason. And then on the inside, it actually has these interesting geometric shapes that go up the leaf. I'm kind of inspired by the plant to maybe make a stencil or a carved rubber stamp or something. It just, the pattern of that little weird wonky geometric thing going up the inside of the leaf was very, very interesting, and I might want to somehow duplicate that. I'm not sure what, but I was thinking about how do I make these look textured, and I just decided to go ahead with my usual process, which is to tear small pieces and then line them up. Now, a lot of you guys have watched me paper paint before, and you've seen a different method than this. and that is where I take the deli paper and I make my drawing on the deli paper, which is a strong but thin paper, and then I put the pieces of collage paper over that, and then I cut it out, and that is a lot easier of a process than this. This is making very small, precise papers and putting them on the line rather than being able to cut the line after. So for those of you who've really been watching a lot of my paper painting and learning about that, that's the difference between this and what you've seen me do more recently. This is the way I used to do it, and I've made very large pieces doing this and sold them. And it's a long process, and it's a lot of very precise tearing. And you know, paper has a grain to it. Sometimes it will tear nicely in one way and then just totally tear like a mess in the other way. And when I'm trying to pick my little pieces and I want a certain color and texture on a certain piece, which is why I have so many different pieces of paper that I've printed, because I need a lot of variety so that I can pick and choose what I want. And sometimes that paper will not tear in the way that you want it to, because the little tiny piece that you wanted to pick happens to be in the wrong grain of the paper, and you're like, ah. So it's, you know, it might look a little bit easy as I'm doing it, because it's sped up, and you're not seeing the thinking process and the tearing carefully process, and wondering, okay, which one should be in the which one should I put on first because it's in the back, like in this section right here where I put those two darker sections in. Those are the ones that are in the back. So I know that I don't have to be quite as precise on the tearing of those ones, because I can overlap and put these lighter ones on the top of it to be in the front, in the foreground, if that makes sense. There's more to it than just tearing up some paper and slapping it on the canvas, is what I'm saying. It does require thought and concentration and focus and precision. So my newer way of doing it is slightly easier, but still requires all those techniques, and you know, you still have to think about it, and you still have to be careful about what you're doing, but being able to cut it out after the fact and not have to worry about all those little tiny lines, and where you're, you know, are you tearing the paper straight enough so that it can be on the line and still look like a line while still being bumpy. That's all eliminated by the other process that I have shown you many times in the last year or two that I developed for paper painting. Someone asked me the other day, did I learn this from anyone? Did I take a class? Did I learn how to paper paint from another person? No, I did not. This is the way that I decided it was done and decided I wanted to do it. Is it similar to other people's? Probably. I've never taken a class from anyone, so I don't know. But I assume that this is the process that most people use, because logically you could deduce that based on, you know, have you seen someone else's other person's paper painting, and what did it look like, and can you think about the process and how it might have been done? That's how I came to do what I do. And this is my most favoritist thing. I know favoritist isn't a word, but I love doing this. I think it looks really super cool. I like, you know, I wish that I owned more of these, because every time I make one, I give it away or I sell it, and then I don't have it anymore. I need to make some just for me, but I never do, because I'm always in the process of making it for someone else. My my kid has some of these. The one that likes to collect art, he actually has a whole wall of my art in his apartment. It's like seriously an entire wall just devoted to mommy's art. It's pretty cool. I always like to visit it when I visit him. But he has a lot of paper paintings that I've done, starting way back when I used to give them to him as presents, because he liked them, and then when he moved, he's like, I need more art. So I continue to give him art as presents. He enjoys it. So he's the one in the family that actually likes what I do and supports what I do, I guess. He's interested in it. So I really liked that piece that I put on there a little bit ago that has the dots on it. It by the it's a darker piece, and you can see there's dark, and then there's a lighter line, and then there's another dark, and then there's some medium, and then there's some dotty, and then some medium again. And that leaf of all of them turned out the best, I thought, to compare to what the plant actually looks like. Does it look exactly like it? No. It's my interpretation, my artistic vision of what it looks like, how I see it through my eyes. And so someone else may not see it the same, but I think that when you look at the completed piece, you can say to yourself, that's a blue agave. And I'm portraying that plant in a way that people can recognize what it is while still being what I see as opposed to what other people see. That's what art is. It's expressing your vision and the way that your brain processes the visual input that you're seeing. And so that's what makes every person's art unique. That's what makes what you see different from what I see. And I hope that all of you try this process and show the world what you see through your eyeballs that and your brain and how you process the information, because it's certainly going to be different than mine. And I don't think anyone can truly duplicate exactly what another person is seeing. I mean, we can certainly try. We can, see a piece of art and try to make that exactly. I know people do it. I know people do it with my videos. I know they want to create exactly what I made because they like it, but it's still going to turn out a little bit different. It's always going to be a little bit different just because of the way our brains process what we see. So someone else's perception of my little paper painting will be different than mine. And that's the reason I'm okay with teaching on YouTube and allowing people to learn from me and produce what they want to produce using my ideas and inspiration. That's okay with me. That means that nobody can really duplicate it. You can certainly try, but you won't be able to. Just because we're all different and our brains run a different way. So I hope you're enjoying this. I hope you're learning a little bit about paper painting. If you are enjoying this, please give me the thumbs up. Leave me a comment or question if you have one down below the video. That's always helpful for my channel to grow because that lets YouTube know that my audience is engaged with what I'm doing and interested in interacting with me, and then they will recommend my videos to other people who are looking for something similar. So that's the reason that I always ask every time. I know you're tired of hearing it, but that's how the channel grows, and that's how we get to 10,000 people so I can give this one away. We might already be there, maybe. Let's hope. So now for this very last finishing bit, I'm using Faber-Castell Pit Artist Pins, which are an India ink in a marker. And that means it's permanent. It's fade resistant. It's, it resists the UV. It's got really nice pigment in it. And it also won't run when I spray this with acrylic spray to seal it because it's permanent. And I just felt that those little sections underneath the plant where it should be super dark, it wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be. And that's because the papers that I printed didn't come out as dark as I really needed. So I'm just adding a little bit of ink on there and blending it with my finger. Because this is a sealed surface, I can give this a blend with my finger for a few seconds before it's permanent. Then I used a dark brown, and then this is a cool gray. Remember I said that the plant is actually a little bit gray looking. So the cool gray works fine to blend in between these a little bit. And then I also use a little bit of dark green around the top, and a little bit of aqua. just to finish it up and make it a little bit more dynamic. So that's it for me. You've got some close-ups of the piece at the end, and I hope you enjoyed it. Bye-bye.